Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Jamal Saeed, and I welcome you to this webinar on developing and implementing a learning organization. I want to welcome you, and it's a very interesting topic. And by the way, this is my first webinar for 2020. So I hope that your year has kicked off to a wonderful start. I hope that you achieve what you're looking for and what you have planned for 2020. I'm sure, like every year, it comes with its challenges. And one of the biggest challenges in today is how to progress on the learning front. This particular topic wasn't a major issue if you go back 25, 30 years back. However, in light of the change that's taking place, organizations are facing a challenge when it comes to how do we develop the learning, and how do we make sure that we transform. And this transformation requires learning new things, learning new skills, learning new habits in order to cope with all the changes that the market is throwing at us. So I want to welcome you. This is going to be an interesting topic. It's a very, very big topic. We're going to try to cover it, hopefully, between the limit of the hour that I have with you. My name is Jamal Saeed, and I look forward to spending this time with you. I want to welcome Bushra. I would like to welcome Jason, Taysir, my dear friend, how are you? And I'd like to welcome Richard as well. So welcome all of you. And I'm sure that we probably would be joined by some other individuals later on. So let's go ahead and start. So with respect to the presentation, and let me see, I just want to make sure that you guys can see the presentation. Yeah. Yes, very good. So now, here we go. So I'm going to be covering a few things, but typically in my webinars, I like to tell you a little bit about Meirc Training and Consulting. It's an interesting company. We're 61 years old. As many of you may know already, that this is a company that has been around. And our expertise in our area is very much into developing talent and developing learning. So if I speak about this particular topic, I won't claim that I'm an expert, but I have seen it, I have felt it, especially when I deal with my participants who come to our courses, whether in-house or public. And you can tell the increased interest in how do we develop a learning, and a learning that makes an impact. And for me, impact means value. How do I make value? How do I create value in my organization and to myself? So this is a very interesting topic. Meirc has been around. I believe that we project a very good image on this front. And that being said, Meirc was created in 1958. Currently, we headquartered in Dubai since 1991. We have a wonderful office here in Bay Square. And as you can see from this slide, we have many things and many programs, more than 300 plus topics, English and Arabic. We also conduct lots of in-company programs. I just came from Saudi Arabia, wonderful city of Al Khobar, where I conducted a training for one of the clients on key account management. So this is normal thing for us, is train, develop, extend the learning. But one of the challenges, I have to say, one of the challenges I always bring to the table is, okay, so I sat down with you 3 days, 4 days, 5 days. How do you use the learning that you have received during those 3 days or 4 days? And that's the challenge. And then how do you take the learning and apply it at work? So you can see where I'm coming from, is that it is important that you use the learning and you expand its capabilities, and see how you can be an active learner in your organization, how you bring value. So this is always a challenge, and I love this challenge because it's a passionate topic for me. And then, as you can see here on the right hand side is the Plus Training. It's our sister company, specialized in industry specific topics. And I tell you, we're doing very well in that area as well. So always look us up if you want to develop your learning and your skills. I hope that Meirc is on your radar screen. We hope to be part of your learning experience, your future, your growth, your success. And then, of course, as I always mention here, a very quick view of our vision, values, mission, and for the sake of time, I'm not gonna take you through it, but this is very special for us. We believe in this wholeheartedly, and we believe in this strong message toward the learning community and development community. When we say that we are providing the most reliable training, consulting products and services in the region, we really mean it. And we are passionate about your development and your success. So that being said, this is just a quick view of our portfolio of topics. Under each one of these squares, we have at least, I would say, 7 to 10 as a minimum. And sometimes in some of the topics, we go up to 20, 21 topics. So we have a very rich library. And as you can see, that's why we have 300 plus. And every year we try to add um, per consultant, 2 to 3 topics. This is one of our key challenges. And it's becoming a requirement that we always see what are the trends in the market and bring this learning to you. And I hope that we are doing a good job in that area. So that being said, I'm going to go ahead and talk a little bit about myself. I been with Merck since August 2012. I worked for several multinationals. It has been a wonderful experience. I learned a lot, and what I like about my current job is I'm applying all the learnings I learned with my participants and through such media as webinars and what have you. So I consider myself very much privileged to have this opportunity and to bring whatever value to your learning environment. And at Merck, I'm a consultant. I speak about several topics. My favorite topics are on leadership and management. And this particular topic is one of the concerns that leaders and managers today have to tackle and develop and work on, because it's an integral part of their strategy. You see, the thing about it is a learning organization is a strategic decision. So that's why I took on this topic, because I believe wholeheartedly that you're required to plan, you're required to put a strategy in order to make sure that you have a learning organization in place. Other topics I cover include people development, communication, negotiations, conflict resolution, project management, and a couple more that I'm sinking my teeth into as I also broaden my experience and my learning skills. So, what are we going to be talking about in this webinar? We have a few objectives to meet. The main topics is identify the knowledge life cycle. Learning is about what do we do with the knowledge. So I like to talk about this one a little bit. Defining a learning organization. How can employees build a knowledge sharing culture? Of course, there will be some barriers, and we can discuss those during the course of the slides. And how would technology impact our learning experience? And probably technology is the biggest impact in our life. The pace of technology, the changes in technology, all of the technological changes has forced themselves onto our life. And as humans, we have to also make sure that we have to make sure that we address these concerns and these challenges. So now I just would like to mention something, that all our courses are supported by blended learning. So whenever you come and join our courses, you leave with a full basket of information and data and knowledge, I hope, because you have the material that we give you, and then the exercises that you conduct. Of course, we stay in touch, but most importantly as well is the fact that you can continue your learning through the links that we give you, and which are associated with the topic that you have attended. For example, if you're attending something on learning organization, we will give you the topics, online topics, and material that you can continue uh, learning and studying these things. And I think this is very critical, and I think it's very wonderful. So whenever money you spend with us, it's money worth spent. So here we go. Let's go into the topic, identifying the knowledge life cycle. One of the key things about these webinars is that I like to quiz you a little bit. So I'm going to give you the first quiz. And so here we go. The first questions I like to ask you is components of a knowledge life cycle are understanding, memorizing, filing, and using. Let me see if you are able to do that. Okay. Okay. I see that some of you are already answering. This is fantastic. And yeah, I see it. I see it is asking true, answering true. Richard as well, saying that it is true. Okay. Let's see if anybody else would like to add. And I appreciate your participation with the chatting. This is wonderful. This is fantastic. I love it. So, well, we're going to answer the question in one of the slides that's coming up. And is it true or false? Let's find out. So first of all, let's go into the some foundation about organizational learning or about knowledge. How about that? When we talk about knowledge, I would like you to remember that there are certain key components that you have to do with knowledge, and every learning organization has to deal with that. First of all, data. And you know, this is the foundation of the knowledge that we build. However, data alone is not enough. And as you're going to see in the subsequent slides, I'm explaining some of these things. And I want to thank my colleague Jimmy Haddad for some of these slides. I think he did a fantastic job here. And then from data, data moves into another stage, which is the information. So from data, we move into information. And then from information, we move into the knowledge. Okay, so knowledge is where what we want. Knowledge is what we want because we want to do something with the knowledge, and knowledge could be the foundation of the skills, the how what we do with it. So this is very important. So you can see this transition from data all the way to information, all the way to knowledge. However, as you can see, data alone is not sufficient. Information alone may not be good enough. And then you have the knowledge, but the knowledge is what do we do with it? So the three are needed. And then above all, there are certain behaviors, attitudes that we have to adopt in order to make use of these things. And it is this particular side that I like to stress on is we take this data, transform it to information, and then we transform it to knowledge. And then the question is, what do we do with it? So here, the first slide. So as you can see, when we talk about data, we're talking about something discrete. Could be, if we define it as something discrete, objective facts about events. From an organizational context, since we're talking about a learning organization, it could be structured records of transactions. So for example, a customer at the gas station, one was the purchase date. So they came and they purchased, gas at a particular day, how many liters were filled, and how much was paid. This is, for me, is raw data. Okay, we collect it, we put it in our database, and it's sitting there. You see, it's sitting there. However, this is not enough, and it doesn't do much if we just leave it there. And this takes us to our next stage, which is the information. So this is where we are progressing in our approach to developing learning in the organization. So when we talk about information, it comes from the word inform, which means that something that changes or shapes the person who gets it. Information is something that influences our opinion about something. It influences our direction in certain ways. So organization context, from an organizational context, is transactions that have some meaning. So as you can see, from a data perspective, it's just sitting there. We don't have, it's raw data. However, when we develop the meaning, this is very important. And the question here is, who decides what that meaning is? And so you can see that this is a very interesting and deep topic, is that what do we do with this data? You see, this is where the meaning could mean something to somebody, and it could mean something else to somebody else, depending on how they are looking at it and what do they want to do with it. For example, the fuel consumption of my car is 160 kilometer for 20 liter. So what do I do here? Do I have to drive less? Do I have to change my car? So I'm interested in developing some information. It's helping me decide on certain things. And as Peter Drucker says, and as you can see, this is a wonderful saying from Peter Drucker, information is data endowed with relevance and purpose. Relevance and purpose means the meaning. So this is why information is the data is not enough, doesn't mean much. However, we as humans and with our curiosity, we tend to attach a meaning, a relevance and purpose to it so that information makes more sense. All right, all of that is great. However, um, there's this interesting slide I'd like to share with you here. So as you can see, when we're moving from data to information, we are doing several activities, and these activities, we call them the 5 C's that kind of differentiates data from information. First of all, condensation means how do we condense the data? Calculations, how do I calculate the data? Contextualization means what perspective I'm looking at the data from, the context of the data. And then, of course, categorization. How do I sort the data? And you know, we have one of the biggest sorting mechanisms sitting between our ears. Our brain is a fantastic categorizer. It's fantastic when it comes to sorting information. And then, of course, we have the correction. Some information we need to correct, you know, because sometimes mistakes do happen, or sometimes, you know, we need to correct it to understand the meaning better. And this could be from a department-wide, company-wide, external sharing-wide. So these 5 C's are very, very critical. And this journey, taking the data from here, passing it through these 5 filters, depending on the filter you're using, you end up with some sense of information. But now that we have the information, comes the knowledge. So what's the definition of knowledge? A mix of experience, values, contextual information, and expert insight. It originates in the minds of people. From an organizational context means embedded in the organizational processes, procedures, practices, and documents. What does it mean? It means that you're applying it. You're applying this information and you're developing knowledge because of it. For example, a full tank in my car will allow me to drive for a total distance of 480. I develop some knowledge. I develop some knowledge about an activity that I have to do. So as you can see how we move from this data to the information to the knowledge. And this is something about humans specifically. Funny enough, some animals develop some innate knowledge, but we are distinguished in that area. We are very much distinguished. And today, this is very important. Knowledge is very important. And I tell you, never in the history of humankind has knowledge been so precious, has been in so much demand. And every day we feel that if we don't have the knowledge, we might feel that there's something missing because we're being challenged to make a decision on a daily basis. And to make a decision, you need the data, you need the information, and you need to develop the knowledge around it. So then how does data evolve? And there's a hierarchical relationship here that you can see, is that we collect data in its raw format, on its structure format, and then we tend to organize the data in some sort. And of course, with the help of technology, databases, and all of these things, it kind of helped us quite a bit because now we can see data in much bigger format, You know, there are lots of technology there that are, we're talking about mega type of data tables and designs that can help us see data from all angles and in much bigger scale. However, that collecting and organizing, we have to summarize, analyze, and that's where the information comes in. So we summarize, analyze the data to develop information. And once we do that, we start synthesizing the information, and we start making decisions according to that. And that's where knowledge resides. So you can see knowledge cannot happen without some data, some information, and then getting into the level of knowledge. This is very important. However, I'd like to tell you something. Knowledge can take different forms. It can be tangible and intangible. And as this slide says over here, this is what we have. So when we're talking about knowledge as an asset for the organization, knowledge can be tangible, means that, current assets, fixed assets, something you can feel, something that you can touch to some extent. Something that could result out of knowledge could be a book, or could be how you apply the knowledge to produce something visible. Okay, the intangible may not be something physical, or may not be something that we can see or hear or something. It can be more on the financial results. Are we doing well or not? Or could be something more on the non-physical side, like customer is happy. All of that is building knowledge about the world that we live in. So that is why knowledge can come also in different formats. It is an important asset today, and some of it we can quantify. Some of it can be easily be quantified, okay? Like the number of participants attending our courses, I can quantify that. However, some of it I cannot quantify. What is this person doing in order to apply the knowledge that he or she has managed to acquire from a learning session, or from an experience, or from an interaction, or what have you? So this is very, very important. So I don't want you to think that knowledge is only tangible or intangible. It can easily be both. And this library of knowledge will have many forms that you can, it can represent itself. So that being said, okay, when we talk about knowledge, we cannot but talk about knowledge management. So when you have this knowledge, it's not enough to have the knowledge, it's how you manage it. Because if you manage knowledge very well, then you have the chance and the opportunity to talk about a learning organization. And this is something very, very critical, is that when we talk about a learning organization, the first thing we look at is how much knowledge you have and how you're managing it. That is why knowledge management, in this case is abbreviated as KM, is the process of capturing, distributing, and effectively using the knowledge. As you can see, the effectiveness of using the knowledge. And this is very, very important. So that is why knowledge management is very critical for a learning organization. And we're going to define this one in a minute, so just bear with us a second. So when it comes to knowledge management, then what is it? It is a discipline that promotes an integrated approach to identifying, capturing, evaluating, retrieving, and sharing all of the enterprise information and asset. Now, notice that we introduced the word enterprise because the title of this webinar is called a learning organization. And learning organization means it's a company, an enterprise, a firm, a facility that has lots of knowledge, and they're going about identifying it, capturing it in data format, then evaluating in terms of information, then retrieving and sharing, and then building that knowledge in the company. So these are assets. When you have knowledge, you have assets. Some of it is tangible, some of it is intangible. And these assets may include your databases, your documentations, your policies and procedures, and any previous information and knowledge that you have captured and you have stored it somewhere. And I use the word storing it somewhere on purpose because one of the main difficulties and one of the main challenges is that when you have a company or organization, you have so much knowledge, but how do I get to it? And that's one of the key challenges of organizations today. If I have all of this knowledge, how do I get to it? And what am I doing with it? I would like you to think or have a mental image in your mind. Okay, this is a mental image. When you go home, you have all of these books, But you have also information. You have information about your credit cards. You have information about your expenses. You have medical information. You have so much information around you. And sometimes you get frustrated when somebody asks you, can you give me that information? I said, wait a second, let me look for it. You see, that is why you yourself also have to have a very good system of knowledge management. That's where that's why we really rely today on smartphones, because they help us manage that knowledge in some one way or another. Are they perfect? No, they are still way far from becoming perfect tools for us. But I tell you, we have come a long way. We have come a long way. Now, that being said, I take you now to the um, this particular information slide, where when we talk about knowledge management, you have to have some sort of planning, organizing. You have to manage the people around the knowledge. You have to manage the material as well. So when we're managing, we have to manage the people and we have to manage the material. And we have to link the people with the material, and that's where issues are. That's where the biggest issues are. So I have met some of the most wonderful, organized people, but when it comes to getting to information, sometimes we cannot get to it. So, and when we talk about management, in addition to managing the people and the material and the information, we have to plan around it, organize it, staff people who can sort the data, analyze the data, bring information out of it, see what's going on, intelligence out of it. You know, we have a new field today. It's called business intelligence. It has been around for 10, 15 years, and it has become essential for every company. That's why there are people, many companies are staffing their companies with those who know how to do what to do with data. And then, of course, you have leading. Leading means you're making decisions around it. Controlling, who has access to this information? Now, who has access to this knowledge? And be very careful. You have, at the end of the day, today we have the challenge of accessing the information. That by itself is part of knowledge management. And then, of course, resourcing. I have a wonderful, wonderful story. It's about a company called Target. You may have heard about it if you have been in the United States. But Target is one of those companies that at some stage didn't know who is buying what. So they hired this particular person, and this person comes in. He has some knowledge, technical knowledge about data and everything. And this particular person sits down and he starts looking at the data that was being collected from people who were buying. And then he started seeing certain behaviors from these people. So notice what's happening. This person is collecting data, so its data is being collected. But he started developing information. You know, certain people are coming on certain times and they're buying certain things. And then what he said, you know what? There's an interesting trend taking place here. People come at certain times, at certain days of the week, and they buy these things. So he started developing some knowledge around these individuals. Now, because of that knowledge, he was able to propose to the management at Target. He said, you know what? Maybe we can do something with all of this. Maybe we can do some targeted advertisement to this individual. So when they come over or when they are at home, they receive some information about the things they like to buy. You see how powerful knowledge management is. So knowledge management can be on the individual level, section level, division level, company level, even social level. And today, with all of this social media and social reach that we have, we feel it every day. And more companies want to know more about us. And they also like to manage the knowledge around us. But this means that we also need to manage our own knowledge. Is that fair? I think it's a very fair question. So we move on to how did this knowledge management proceed. So as you can see, in the past 70s, information was important. To some extent, we have explicit knowledge about things, and we have information technology transfer. But as we moved into the 80s, and the 80s left quite an impression on me, because for me, we got into the computerization here. And then all of a sudden, knowledge has become a professional competence. And then it has become an organizational asset because now we're collecting more and more information because of the computers that have invaded us at the time. And then, of course, we have the knowledge acquisition and knowledge engineering, which has become essential in light of the computer and the computer technology that has become available in such a big way. But in the 90s, this is the most wonderful time in the life of humanity, is when the internet started coming in. And then all of a sudden, we have an abundance of information. Now it really has become an organizational asset. And then, of course, knowledge management has presented itself. He said, you know what? We have so much information that now it's time to do some knowledge management. And this is where some authors, some thinkers started producing information and books and publications around this particular topic because they realized that this is very, very important. As we moved into the 21st century, more and more investment into knowledge management has arisen, as well as extensive technological support has come into the forefront. And this is what we see today, a tremendous amount of hunger for this kind of knowledge, how to manage it, and how to use it in a very, very interesting way. Now, that being said, we like to share with you the following, is that research have shown that organizations with higher knowledge management maturity, they have twice, if not more, the financial performance of other organizations with lower knowledge management. I'm not talking knowledge. All companies may have lots of knowledge, but which company manage its knowledge better is the one that has twice as much performance, positive performance and financial results than the rest. And that's a big statement. This is a very, very big statement. That is why if you have the knowledge, it's not enough. You have to manage the knowledge. And this is an ongoing process today because, you know, we are receiving knowledge almost every day. Now, this takes us to the answer of the question which I asked you at the beginning. What is the life cycle of knowledge? Well, the life cycle of knowledge, based on the expert's opinion, is how do we acquire knowledge, how do we share knowledge, and how we utilize knowledge. So I want to thank all of you who have answered, and you said true. You might be true to some extent, but that's how we define life cycle of knowledge, from acquisition to sharing to utilization. That takes us to the next set of slides where we talk about the defining a learning organization. So what is a learning organization? I'm going to give you one definition, and please tell me based on the chat box here, tell me if this is true or not, true or false. A learning organization is where people continually expand their capacity. And here maybe you can answer a little bit. Let's see, can you answer? Probably you have the screen right now in front of you. Try to see if you can answer or not. Okay. So again, the question here is, a learning organization is where people continually expand their capacity to deliver outcomes they desire and support, where new ideas and patterns of thinking are encountered and nurtured, and where learning and collaboration are facilitated and exploited to deliver continuous and successful transformations. And as I mentioned at the beginning, there we have some interesting challenges. So that's very good. We have some interesting input here. Very good. Well done. And I see some are saying false, some are saying true. Well, I hope to share with you the answer. Okay. Very good. Well done. I'll give you another 5 minutes since you guys are so enthusiastic this afternoon or morning, depending where you are listening to this webinar from. So I'll give you another 15 seconds now. Let's hope that we hear more from you. Again, I welcome all of you. Thank you for being with us on this call. We really appreciate you taking the time to be with us and listening to this webinar. And I hope that you find it useful. Okay, so now I'm gonna go ahead and end the survey. I want to thank all of you who have participated in this one. Thank you very much. And I'm showing you the result. I hope that you like it. The answer is true. So true is the answer. And let me tell you why. I'm going to tell you the answer from an interesting perspective. And that perspective comes from one of the leading thought leaders when it comes to leading learning organization. His name is Peter Singer. And Peter Singer is one of those, influencers who came out in the 1990s when this topic of knowledge management started, making an impact. So, and here we go. So, um, when we talk about a learning organization, it's a learning organization is an organization that facilitates learning, and it is one of its key objectives. You see, remember, a learning organization cannot be a learning organization unless they make a decision that one of our leading objectives is to facilitate learning for our employees. So I know all of you on this call are working for an organization. I would like you to ask yourself, does your company, does your organization facilitates learning? Do they encourage you to learn new things? Do they tell you go for this training? Do they support you if they say I like to pursue a learning path, whether online or not? And this is something very critical. So a learning organization is as a key objective on their or as a key strategy is that they facilitate the learning of its employees or their employees. The second one is about a learning organization is an organization that uses this capacity or this asset to transform themselves. You see, this is very, very important. They continuously improve themselves. Why? Because they use this learning to say, look, we have done something in the past, we have some issues and concerns, we have some pitfalls, let's improve it. And that's very, very important. Transforming organization or organization that transforms itself is a learning organization. The third item from a learning organization is an organization that modifies its behavior to accommodate learning. They modify their procedures and policies in order to reflect the knowledge they have acquired and to support the insights they have gained. The fourth part of a learning organization is that they support ongoing learning. It's not enough to facilitate learning. They also have ongoing learning. That this means that it's part of their strategy to learn on an ongoing basis. And then the last, and could be, may not be the last one, but for the time being, based on this slide, we have these 5 pillars. High involvement. Are employees involved when it comes to making decisions in the organization, executing the decisions that come out from these decisions that are being made, and the assessments that they drive? Now, this is very important. So as you can see, a learning organization is something that facilitates learning, transforms, modifies behavior, ongoing learning, and high involvement. So if you go back to the definition I gave you, of course it's going to be true. Of course it's going to be true. So now let's go back to some of the characteristics of a learning organization. The 5 learning disciplines, and this is based on the book by Peter Singer, as I mentioned before, that a learning organization has 5 key characteristics. First, they have systems thinking. So this is the 5 learning disciplines. Systems thinking. They learn through a system process or system mindset or system approach. Then you have personal mastery. Then you have mental models. Then you have shared vision. And then you have team learning. So this is something very critical. And I assure you, things have evolved slightly. Now we have some of the authors saying that we have 6 disciplines of learning. For today, I'm going to focus on these 5. And hopefully when you join some of our courses, we will talk about the different disciplines that we see. Let's take the first one, systems thinking. Thinking, what does it mean? Well, it means that you have to look at the people and what do people do with the structures and how do these structures are supported by the processes. So as you can see, it's very important that you look at from a system perspective. How do systems, cater to the needs of society, of the company, of the individuals? How do we use these systems that are in many ways, they become essential and an important foundation for the success of an organization? It can be in a bank, you know, it can be in a university, it can be in a manufacturing company. These systems are essential. So that's why we call it the systems thinking. The second part of the learning discipline is what we call the personal mastery. And personal mastery is something very important, a commitment from the individual to pursue learning. And this could happen from training and development. Your head of department might send you on a training course. And they develop a learning culture individually or within the division itself. And they make sure that they transfer whatever learning into the job. And notice what's happening here. I'm going to link this one to the first one. You see, when you go for training and you develop yourself and you learn new skills, typically, your company is expecting you to help with the systems thinking. They want you to contribute to how systems and operations become better. And that's why it's very critical that when you have personal mastery, you actually contribute big time to the systems thinking in the organization. So that's the second discipline. The third discipline that I like to talk about or broaden the topic on a little bit is the mental models. And the mental models is very critical. And this is in many ways, it helps in terms of the decisions we make and the assumptions that we develop. And these assumptions could be based on some of the theories that we learn from in university, or we develop through our experience, and also the memories that we create. And probably you can associate with this quite a bit, because some people have interesting mental models and they are very good thinkers, they take fast decisions. This means that they have organized their mental models in a very efficient way. Some other people are very good decision makers. This means that they have structured the mental model around the decision making capability, and so on and so forth. So this is very, very critical. So you can see these three disciplines, how they are working with each other. And some of the mental models develop over time and develop over with the experience that we gain. The fourth discipline that I like to talk about in this particular case has to do with the shared vision. And the shared vision creates a common identity that provides focus and energy for the learning. I mean, this is very, very important, and this could be impacted by the organizational structure that you work within, or it can be, you know, the structure of your organization. Some organizations, especially today, which is very, very interesting, and I notice lots of trends in this area, is that even the organizational structure is not as structured as we used to see it before. Many of these structures are more intricately bound, and sometimes you cannot see which division is what and how do they interact with each other, and which is creating a very interesting setup in many organizations. And many organizations believe that this unstructured way of going about it helps in terms of developing knowledge in organizations, which is, it's amazing what's happening today. The last discipline is about team learning. And this one, my dear friends, is very critical. I cannot tell you how important this has become. One of the things that I got exposed on this front when it comes to team learning is that, you know, when it comes to many companies and many, especially in the education field, a lot of universities, what they do is they put people in teams. What they are discovering more and more is that team learning brings knowledge very, very fast. Why? Because you're interacting with people and you are able to exchange information. This exchange of information is so important that it helps drive learning much, much faster than if you're sitting at home all by yourself and cramming books. Now, some people are quite talented and they learn very fast on their own, but team learning can magnify this learning in a very big way. That is why a learning organization, they really actually encourage the team learning and collaboration and teamwork. Why? Because this helps with the discussion, with the dialogue, and with the open communication. This is why these 5 disciplines are very critical in a learning organization. However, we cannot deny the fact that there are certain barriers. And I told you from the beginning, I'm going to tell you about some barriers. Some of these barriers you may already have. First of all, the individual work environment. Unfortunately, the work environment sometimes is one of the biggest barriers in the face of a learning organization. Whether it is the learning structure, the management style, the setup of the office, can be as simple as that. Sometimes it's the rewards. What are you rewarded on? Sometimes it's the systems that you have in place which may not be compatible with each other. They don't talk to each other. Sometimes we have so much things on our desk or on our table that we're not able to share, and our systems are not made to share. Sometimes we are so inward focused that sometimes we forget that it's important to have some teamwork, because teamwork is about being more open and more extrovert and being able to talk and discuss. Sometimes the competition that companies have in place. Yes, I know. I worked with organizations where internal competition is very, very prevalent, and this does not encourage when it comes to developing a really learning organization. It helps in terms of developing learning, a personal learning. But when it comes to a learning organization, the internal competition, especially if it is unhealthy, it doesn't drive a learning organization. Last but not least, and everybody goes through this, is that we're afraid if I share information, I might lose my job. So I try to protect my job by not sharing, when in reality, you become better at your job if you share. But you can imagine why some people don't want to share. And I'm not saying that this is something bad or good. I'm not trying to be a judge here. However, at the end of the day, the more you share, the stronger you become and the better equipped you become when it comes to learning and how you apply this learning and knowledge in your organization. So how do we enable? How do we enable and create a learning organization? Well, one thing for sure is that we have to create a collaborative workplace. Instead of individual rewards, we drive team rewards. Instead of incompatible system, we make sure that these systems are talking with each other and they are becoming more compatible. We also focus on the customer satisfaction and delight rather than focusing on the smaller things. We need to encourage a sharing environment, not only internally, but also externally. Instead of being inward focused, we try to be more open and dynamic. And of course, internal competition, we try to make it more a healthy competition by making sure that we drive either team competition or try to help a system in place that will drive a competitive watch instead of an internal competition only. And then, of course, we need to always drive trust. Trust is one of the key components that will help eliminate job security fears and what have you. So that being said, I like to remind you that typically when we are talking about a learning organization, there are certain strategies that you can follow. The first one is, do you have a proper communication plan in place? I tell you, I am one of the biggest proponents for communication systems. And I always believe that the failures of any project, anything that you do, including a learning organization, is the lack of communication. So the first thing you need to do is have a communication plan in place. Second is assess your culture. What kind of culture do you have? Is it introverted, extroverted? Is it competitive or based on individual or team based? This all helps in terms of developing the right culture to drive the learning organization. Foster commitment across the organization. Another strategy, develop and revise the mission statement. Your mission statement is very important, guys. So that is why it is important that you define a mission statement that drives learning organization. Then you have training and development. Always support people and support change and transformation in the organization. It is the fact of today. You have to cope with the change and transformation. And to do that, the best way to do it is to develop a learning organization that can cope with all this change. And then, of course, implement and evaluate. Now, that being said, I'm going to move a little bit faster, and do forgive me if I sound going a bit too fast, but I don't want to take away from your time as well. I'm sure you have other things to worry about. So one of the key things is there a process behind each of these stages that we talked about? I believe we do. So here comes a question for you. mentoring and apprenticeship, collaborative workplaces, expert interviews, and job aids are knowledge management and establishing to improve knowledge management and establishing learning organization. So are these tools or example of strategies? Let's see. Is it true or false? Now here you go. I'm going to give you a chance to look at answer the yeah, I'm going to go look at question number 3. Yeah, that's true. Go ahead. Let's see if you can answer this one. We already have some people jumping in. That's fantastic. That's great. So here we go. I'm going to give you another 15 seconds just to be on the safe side. So whatever I mentioned, so I'm going to just mention it again, is mentoring and apprenticeship, collaborative workplaces or workspaces, expert interviews, and job aids. Are they examples of strategies to improve knowledge management and establishing a learning organization? Let's see. I give you 5 more seconds and then I'm going to close the voting. All right. So here we go. I'm going to share the results with you. And all of you said true. So, and one person said false. Well, it is true. Okay. And these are all ways or strategies to encourage a learning organization, establish a learning organization. So now I'm going to close the window as I go back to my slides and to make sure that we are going from there. So well done to all of you. Thank you for answering. Now remember one thing, my dear friends. Organizations generate knowledge from different ways, either how you interact with your environment, how you absorb information, and what you do with the knowledge. And as you know, there are many, many ways to generate knowledge. And I am sure you have so many. And please feel free to share your opinion on via the chat box. Tell me, how do you generate knowledge in your organization? And this is very critical. So it is important that we always generate knowledge and feel comfortable in generating this knowledge. However, some of the ways that we generate knowledge come from acquisition. Some of it comes from dedicated resources. Yes, you can get some expertise from outside. Sometimes from fusion, putting things together. Sometimes from knowledge networking. Oh, I love this one. And sometimes from adaptation. If we look at each one of these things, you're going to find out that when it comes to acquisition, basically, some people buy it. It's as simple as that. Either an organization buys another organization, or you might eventually you buy the information. And however, there are certain potential problems with that, because sometimes you may not be able to measure that information. And sometimes the knowledge workers may be hard to identify, and disruption in knowledge culture can be quite strong, especially if two companies are merging. Man, that is very difficult. And sometimes in the mergers of companies, knowledge dissipates. I used to work for a wonderful, wonderful company, and my company was one of the leading company of acquiring somebody else. And typically what happens when our company used to acquire another company, lots of people would leave. So what happened to knowledge, as you can see? So this is very critical. You have to do it the right way. If you want to follow the acquisition approach, make sure that you are able to maintain and retain the knowledge that you acquire. Sometimes people rent information. You probably have done it on a number of occasions as well, where you rent certain information for a certain period of time. For example, you buy a book for a certain period of time and you send it back, or rent it, give it back. So the other part of different modes of knowledge generation is dedicated resources. This is where you may have research and development division, for example, who are generating new information, new products, new ways of doing things. And at the same time, you might, for example, have certain people dedicated to this particular task. The third one is mode that we have has to do with the fusion, where you have different departments working together and then you develop a new team. I tell you, this is the best. I love it. Why? Because when you put different people from different departments, they start looking at things completely differently. So fusion is a very nice mode of developing this kind of knowledge and knowledge in organization. The fourth one is adaptation. And basically it means that how you take a product and make it better. How do you improve it? And you could be looking at a particular product and say, you know what, can we add something to it? So you adapt and a particular way of doing things. And the same thing with the product, with the process, you can also adapt your knowledge. Okay, so successful adaptation though requires that you have the internal resources who are capable of using things in a new way, and they are open to change. I mean, I always had that knowledge, but can I use it differently? I always used something for a certain in a certain way. Can I use it in another way? And this means that, you know, the success is often the enemy of innovation, and it's so true. It's so true. Because it's very important that because you succeed in a certain way, you stopped exploring other ways. So never rest. Always try to explore new ways of doing certain things. Now, the last mode is basically knowledge networking, and as the name says, basically you build communities of practice, and we see it a lot today. Man, do we see it today, especially on the social media. You have so many communities of practice. You have lawyers having communities of practice, you have engineers, you have all of these things. And it's not only from a you can say communities, physical communities. It's more virtual communities, which is fantastic and phenomenal. Now, that being said, this takes us to the following slide where we talk about factors impacting knowledge generation. First of all, the adequate space. Do you have the space where people can share and exchange information? Do you have enough time? You know, time is a commodity. So sometimes we don't have enough time to put and invest behind the knowledge generation. And that has to be a conscientious effort by the company to develop and provide time for people who work on knowledge generation and be compensated for it. And then, of course, you have managerial recognition. Do management, or does the management recognize you for the effort when you come with new knowledge into the organization? This is very, very critical. This takes us to the following slide, where we talk about strategies for knowledge transfer. We talked about how we can acquire knowledge, but how do you transfer knowledge? Well, work profiling is one of them. Based on the work that you have, you profile the right people behind it, and you make knowledge an important part of that work. Mentoring and apprenticeship. Oh, I love this one. Collaborative workspaces. As you can see, we just answering the question I asked you. Job aids, of course, everybody should have some assistance, and many cases, jobs we can provide the proper aid behind the job to make knowledge faster and better. Lessons learned debriefings. I love this one. Sometimes when I used to go into some big deals and we win it or lose it, we used to have a gathering and say, listen, guys, what did we learn from this opportunity, this experience, this meeting with the customer? How can we make things better? This is a fantastic way of, encouraging knowledge transfer. And then, of course, on job training, I'm sure that many of you go through it. And then, of course, training. Training is one of the traditional way of encouraging the knowledge transfer. So I appreciate the fact that Jassim here is sharing with us some information, and the fact that he was working on acquisition company. Yeah, I agree with you. And when you acquire a company, one of your biggest challenges is how to retain the knowledge from the company that you're acquiring. So thank you, Jassim, for sharing with us. Now, how does information or knowledge flow? First of all, you have to use it. Then you have to create it. And of course, you have to identify it, collect it, review it, share it, and then access it. Access it, access it. This is the key word here. All of these steps can be very good, but if you cannot access the knowledge, that's where the problem is. That's one of the key problems that exist. And that's what we call business value creation. When you have knowledge and you have this cycle, you start developing value. I just want to let you know that successful companies today, They know how to create value because of the learning organizations they have developed in their workplace. So let's move into the building a knowledge sharing culture. I'm going to give you a small quiz over here. And building a knowledge sharing culture is the responsibility of a human resources department. True or false? Let me go into the survey here. And this is question number 4. And I'm going to give you a chance to answer. What do you think? What do you think? Oh, we have already some strong participation. And I want to thank you for taking the time to answer these things. So building a knowledge sharing culture is the responsibility of a human resources department. True or false? I'll give you 10 more seconds just to be sure that whoever wants to participate, they participate. There you go. There you go. So 5 more seconds and then I will close the survey, close the voting. All right, so I'm gonna end the voting right now. I'm gonna share the results with you. So well done. So one person said true. I'm sorry. It's not the responsibility of human resources department only. Everybody is responsible for it. So as you can see from the presentation here, everybody owns the learning organization. Human resources play an important role. However, it's the responsibility of everybody, whether human resources, engineers, marketing, sales, secretaries, everybody should participate in building this knowledge and learning organization. Why? Because skills are required across the board. And this means that the responsibility is for with everybody, for the interpersonal skills, communication skills, analytical skills, technical skills, technological skills, and knowledge. So you can see it comes from all angles. The main thing here is that when we talk about skills, many of it comes from different angles. Some of it might come from project management, some comes from change management, some comes from technology management. I tell you one thing, we live in some of the most wonderful times today. It's a time when things are changing and we are improving our knowledge in a very big way. Does this mean that we have a chief knowledge officer today? Probably some companies are thinking about it seriously because this particular topic is becoming quite hot. And this takes us to this particular chart which I shared with you before, the knowledge life cycle. When it comes to acquisitions, you have to have personal mastery and lifelong learners. You have to make sure that you are always learning. Sharing. Are you willing to share? Are you willing to assist other people develop their skills and utilization? How to locate, how to access the information, and how to use it all the time, how to make it better. This takes us to the following slide. There are 2 types of knowledge organizers. Those who share and collaborate. This means that we have to help them eliminate the structural barriers, which we talked about before. And then you have the knowledge hoarders. These are the people who keep taking on knowledge, but sometimes they don't share. We have to have them engage and communicate and reward them accordingly, because this is very, very critical today. This means that when it comes to the influencing the behavior of employees, we have to lead by example. We have to make sure that we aggressively brand learning organization in a very big way. We have to recognize and reward the people for sharing knowledge and building a learning organization, and make sure that knowledge management is something fun to do. This means that we have some options here. When we talk about brand aggressively, we have to add messages, newsletters all over the place. You have to increase the knowledge management through multiple channels. We have to organize knowledge in certain events, for example, call for meetings, a Sunday call, Thursday call, afternoon, share information, do presentation, do something, that will help people increase their knowledge, similar to this webinar. This particular webinar is part of the branding aggressively when it comes to learning organization. Share stories. I love stories. Stories are very important today. So as you can see, there are many ways to accelerate these things. And to create a knowledge sharing culture, you have to show people the direct personal benefits. There is always a benefit in sharing culture and sharing information and building a learning organization. Re-engineer reward and recognition system. Build systems that can reward people for using the knowledge. identify knowledge champions, allow for mistakes to happen. You know, number four is something very important. We will learn sometimes through mistakes. So it's very important that we encourage appropriate level of mistake, because through errors we learn very fast. Make knowledge sharing a job requirement, educate employees, and implement the technology that will help you in terms of that. This means that when it comes to knowledge management, here's a quick mini knowledge management prototype. For example, lobby to create a knowledge management unit, assess your organization knowledge. There's so many ways to assess your knowledge. Align knowledge management behind the strategy, mission, and vision and values of your company. Identify your organization critical knowledge. What are we good at? What are we good at? Analyze the existing technological infrastructure. Your infrastructure might have an issue, so you have to evaluate it and make sure you develop a knowledge management measure to know if we are doing things correctly or not. This takes us to the suggestions around how to build a business case, because building a learning organization requires a business case in many ways, which from the scope to the knowledge management status of the organization, know what you have right now, building the goals and objectives, opportunities, explore the opportunities. What resources do you need? Who are the key sponsors you need? What could be the risks and barriers to overcome? How much cost do we need? And I tell you one thing, nothing will move without the money. So you have to think the financials, the productivity, the time that you're going to invest, but it is money worth spent. What are the milestones for this business case? And then of course, make sure that you get the approval. We're coming to our last few slides. So I want to thank you all for putting up with me for this afternoon. So here comes the last question. So here you go. People, not technology, is key to a successful learning organization. True or false? So here we go. I'm gonna share with you the question right now, and it's the last question. So be ready to answer. Let's see. People, not technology, is the key to a successful learning organization. Very good. Well, we have some very strong response here. That's very good. Well done, you guys. Okay. I'll give you another 5 seconds to 7 seconds before I end the voting. All right. Okay. All right. All right. So I'm going to end the voting right now. I want to thank you for your participation with these quizzes. So I'm going to show you the results. As you can see, some people said true, some people said false. Well, people, not technology, is the key to a successful learning. Technology is a tool, but people are what makes a successful learning organization. Please don't forget that one. Please don't forget the human element. So I'm going to close this one. Okay, and I'm going to go now to my slides and start wrapping up, you guys. So here we go. Now, people, not technology, are the key to a successful learning organization. I think we answered that one already. However, please remember that it's very important that we know how to capture the information, how to store the information, how to maintain the information. And once we do that, we are able to distribute information. In the previous slides, we talked about the importance of sharing and distributing the information. And today, it comes from different ways. These are different categories of tools that are available. Some of it we call groupware, intranets, project management, document management, social media. So here comes some suggestions. From groupware, you have collaboration, transparent capture, document exchange, conversation email. Some of the tools, Microsoft Teams is a wonderful tool. Honestly, I use it. I love it. Email, Skype, Confluence, Miro, Rick, MyHub, all of these are important available tools on the groupware. When it comes to the intranets, or your internal internet, if you want to call it, there are many tools that will help you collaboration, information distribution, because distribution is very important. Publishing, I tell you, you have to publish your work. If it is good, don't hold it back. Share it with people. I write articles and I share it with people. I publish what I do because it's important I share with people. Yellow pages, directory, whatever. And some of the things that we have today is a tool like Interact, Intranet, Expo platform, Igloo software, Simpler, LMS learning management systems. These are all wonderful tools that we have today. And then we have on the project management front, it helps you organize your tasks, generate reports, link resources. Some of the tools we have today include MS Project, Monday.com, Jira, Ace Project, Easy Project. I tell you, the amount of tools we have today is amazing. So don't hold back, go and learn. And then, of course, we have on the document management front, versioning control, scanning, electronic format, indexing and retrieval. And this is very important when it comes to organizing and sorting. So some of the tools we have, DocMe, Confluence, Open Knowledge Management, MSP Docs. So as you can see, there are so many. I mean, I looked at the internet the other day and these things are amazing. And then of course on the social media, and I'm sure all of you are on social media, social networks, YouTube channels, TEDx, podcasts, some of the top tools here, and many of you are already there. Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, Snapchat, they have become phenomenal ways of distributing information. Yes, sometimes they are misused, but I tell you, I use it for the right things. Technology is an important part of knowledge management. It helps disseminate information the right way. It helps search for information. So don't spare it. Make sure that you are sharing with people. Here's a very quick view at how to implement a knowledge management system and how to help in building a learning organization. Always make sure you analyze the existing infrastructure, align knowledge management and business strategies, design the knowledge management infrastructure, audit it, design it, create the knowledge management blueprint, develop the knowledge management blueprint. You need a blueprint. It's as if you are building a house. Deploy using the results-driven incremental methodology. This means that you have to put some measures there, and then manage the change, manage the culture. It's going to be tough. I'm not going to lie to you. And then, of course, evaluate the performance and make sure that you're delivering these things. And with this, I come to the end. I hope you enjoyed the webinar. I want to thank you. Here are my contact details. If you want a copy of this webinar, I'll be more than happy to send you the slides. And we have 2 sessions coming up on this particular topic, developing and managing a learning organization. One is coming up in a couple of weeks and another one in September. If you happen to, if you want to get to know more about the topic, do join us in these courses. We'll be more than happy to welcome you and, share with you all of knowledge and build relationship with you. I want to thank you for your time. You have been a wonderful crowd, and thank you for your patience. Here are some references. This is The Fearless Organization. I love this book by Amy Edmondson. I tell you. Leading a Learning Organization, The Science of Working with Others by Casey Reason. The 6 Disciplines of Breakthrough Learning. This is the new book I told you about, Andy Jefferson, Calhoun Wick, and Roy Pollock. And of course, it builds on the 5th discipline, which, Peter Senge has come up with in 1990, but this is a new edition, 2006. And then Learn or Die. Oh my goodness, using science to build a leading edge learning organization by Edward Hess. Thank you guys. Have a wonderful weekend, and I hope to see you in future webinars. Take care for now, and all the best. Okay, so for some of you who would like to see my contact details, here they are. Please note it down and do let me know. Send me an email and be more than happy to send you my this presentation. So thank you so much.
Meirc.com